Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying!
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast and another episode of Scouted. We are back, baby. We've been doing Arsenal players over the last couple of weeks, months. We looked at Calafiori, we looked at Timber, we've looked at Ethan Waneri, loads of other players, but we are finally the best part of the season, guys. The transfer window is not even nearly upon us. I can't even sell it as that. We're looking at players outside of Arsenal as we sort of ramp up towards January, starting with Kenan Yıldız. We just did an hour looking at clips of him on Y Scouts, looking at his shots, looking at his positioning, looking at his off-ball movements, looking at his aerial stuff, looking at his creative passing, loads and loads of stuff. It was a really interesting watch, as always. And if you sign up as a Patreon member, you get a 7-day free trial, or as a YouTube member, and you can check out all the other Scouted as well. But we are here to talk Yildiz, the deal, the player, and what we sort of learned and what we sort of feel about him. And I'm here with my boy, George, as always. George, Yildiz, an exciting name, absolutely. Someone who, depending on where you believe, whether it's the Daily Mail or whoever it might be, or Fabrizio Romano, something like £80 million or so is the rumoured fee. 20 years old, obviously playing at Juventus. Talk to us about him. He is an interesting player, and I think finding out that he spent 10 years in the Bayern Munich academy explains a lot. So talk to us about Yildiz and what you like and what we don't like.
I think he's an incredibly efficient player. That's the one thing that you're going to look at with Yildiz, where he doesn't really waste a touch. His touch economy, to get really nerdy, is brilliant. I think he's got a great picture of the final third, so he's very decisive in it, and it shows. A lot of his actions are never wasted. In terms of, his broad skill set, he's quite complete. It really looks like he's been at an academy for 10 years. His fundamentals are supreme. I wouldn't say he's necessarily street footballer, but he makes the right decision 8 to 9 times out of 10 consistently. And he's also somebody that I feel is got a really nice broad skill set where he's fast. I don't think he's in the top 1% of physical athletes that you're going to see, but he's an incredibly fast player that doesn't lose stamina over the long distances. He can carry it and still produce a really powerful shot from that, which is great. His dribbling, it's very close to his chest. It's not street footballer, but he's got this really brilliant ability to keep the ball close for a cutback, especially in a top speed. The one thing I like to say is he's not necessarily, an elite athlete off a standstill, but his dribbling with the ball is quite elite. He's very fast dribbling, and, he doesn't slow down at any point to keep control of the ball. It's actually in one fluid motion, which is really nice to see. He's got also really strong fundamentals with shooting off both feet, willing to do it. Probably the only thing is you might have 1 or 2 shots in which he's willing to take that you probably want to tweak and say that he could maybe focus a bit more. However, he's just so brilliant in shooting, and especially in the placement of his shots. I find that his awareness in the box and stuff like that is brilliant in terms of finding a place to shoot. It's top work, and his fundamentals about really getting over the ball and those kind of things are great. The only thing is I just don't think he likes to do a word I can't use on YouTube, but I did use in Patreon for the first time ever on the podcast. But he doesn't strike through the ball with his laces necessarily. He's a lot more of the inside of the toe placement shooter, and that really shows because he's really cerebral in his shooting, in my opinion. He really understands where the keeper is and will place it far post. And, he has a shot from outside the box, and he'll test you really great as well. Aerially, he's there. I don't think there's anything special. And probably the only thing in terms of off the ball movement that I probably want him to improve on is just getting into the box to be an option at the end of a kind of wide cross. There is at times in which he kind of holds his run to arrive centrally, and he's almost looking for a cut back, it seems like, or expecting to be that person where, he's brilliant in terms of his speed and his shooting. Like, he should be busting a gut to be far post and be an option a bit more than he does. But all in all, this is a supremely young player that a lot of the benefits that we're going to talk about beyond just the skills is the mentality that he has been the man for Juventus at his age in a team that has struggled for the best part of 5 years at this point. And, he is stepping up to be their shining light, which says quite a bit about the man.
Yeah, I'm barely a man at 20. It's amazing what he's doing. It's just thinking about Max Dowman. Anyway, the calling a 20-year-old young. Anyway, so I think the force of nature is the word I keep coming back to, and I think we really see that. And when we come to sort of how he fits in at Arsenal and stuff later, I think we should talk about that. But there is a real presence to him in the final third. He has a clarity of thought, and you see it in a lot of moments where he enters the box and he has a fake shot, or he'll have a moment where he slows down, he'll look. He really has time, I think, and it really feels he has time. And I think having a player who is able to go, I think, both sides, is able to use the outside of the foot, inside of the foot on both feet, is a real weapon. And I really only want to just highlight in particular the creative passing, as you mentioned. But really, if you want to go see the clips, this is a real thing. His weight of pass, his ability to get the ball into the box, his half space crossing, and all that sort of stuff. You probably, if you've watched Yildiz, you'll have seen the shots from outside the box. You've seen the moments he beats someone on the dribble or whatever it might be. But his creative passing as a force, I think, is something that we can really have a look at. Let's look at him from a stats perspective then. Just some numbers from this season from Data Detective. This is him compared to midfielders in Serie A. He is playing as more of a kind of a 10 this season. You're seeing some good numbers in terms of assists and expected assists, again, sort of highlighting that creative stuff. The goal numbers aren't incredible yet, but we do have to consider where he is in Serie A so far this season. He's had 9 appearances and it's 2 goals and 3 assists. Champions League, 3 appearances, 1 goal, 1 assist. And in Serie A last season, he had 12 GA in all competition, if you're counting, 7 goals and 5 assists. In Serie A, not all competitions, in 35 Serie A appearances. Where does he go to that next level? How do you see him moving to become... Because I do see a kind of formidable striking quality in him, and I do see a force, and we sort of mentioned this on the Scouted. The quality he has, we always talk about players who can make stuff happen in the final third. You can see his teammates feel that quality from him and want to run for him, want to run beyond him. But I also think he has the quality to become a proper goal scorer. So how does he get there?
First thing, you'll look at the aerial duels, and I think that's because he's compared to midfielders. So just statistically, it's a little bit of a misleading stat. But broadly speaking, look, it is about what you want, but this is a guy for me that has such creative instincts that deserves more touches of the ball, broadly speaking. And I think that the reason that, Juve have moved him a bit more inside this season, more of a 10/second striker type feeling, is because for me, he is best working off somebody like that and coming inside. But that's not to say that he can't touch line. And we had a little bit of a chat about that on the Patreon that you can kind of go, so not to relitigate that, but it's a little bit more of this is a presence that I think is such a complete skill set. If you ask him to do a role, he'll perform. He is in that, there's that mold of, that one quote where Jose Mourinho goes, if I had 11 Cesar Azpilicuetas, I'd be happy and I'd be able to win the league. There is a bit of, you tell Yildiz to do something, he'll be brilliant because his fundamentals are top. So it's never that he will be bad. But as far as what he likes to do, he likes to cut inside. His shooting inside of the foot. So he likes to place and shape some of those things. So ideally, he's not somebody that loves cutting back on the outside to hit a low cross. He doesn't love doing that, but he can do it. And he's just very complete and efficient in his actions that you start to wonder, because of that creative passing and that pace of pass that you see, if you isolated all of his accelerations, by the way, the really top ones, I'd say 70, 80% of them come through the middle where he receives. He likes to drop in and drive centrally and carry you up the pitch. So him having that flexibility, there is a valid question how that works with Eze, who likes doing the same thing in those zones. But this is a guy with the running power on the outside that I still think could be like Karumo Mitoma, could be that option in which he absolutely can play out wide and be a creative presence from there. It could be somebody like, a Trossard, again, that kind of second striker type winger that can come inside but also be on the outside as well. He has that versatility there. About what he becomes in the future, I think that impact central is always something that I'm going to love with him and Yildiz, but that's not to say that I think that he can't be on the outside, because he can. He's just very complete. Yeah. So that's the debate with it.
He is, and really the technical efficiency is just what you keep coming back to. And every player can trap a ball and pass a ball or whatever, but it's under pressure, consistently creating separation. The ball manipulation he has at speed as well is the really impressive part.
Yeah.
Apologies, Matoma, if you're watching, for whatever George said your first name was. The love you. The probably the most interesting part of this conversation then is the fit. So let's talk sort of that side of things. Depends on who you believe. Gazzetta dello Sport have said. I'm doing it now, whatever they're called. La Gazzetta dello Sport said Arsenal prepared to compete with Chelsea. There's someone called Radio Web, which is a place in Italy, is saying that we've proposed an offer that includes £43.4 million plus Gabriel Jesus for Juventus's Kenan Yıldız. Look, whether you believe it or not, I'm sure Arsenal are at least aware and keeping tabs on Yıldız because he's an incredibly exciting player, as they should be. In terms of the fit, which we spoke about a little bit just now, and I want to go into it, I think there is we discussed this about sort of quality on the inside, but I really feel in this Arsenal team, and specifically the way we attack, it's very much something actually Rohan talks about a lot, which is the sort of the when A does X, B does Y type thing. And I think signing someone in a number of who's a quality in a number of different locations and who has that kind of total player aspect to them, so a phrase Mikel used about Declan Rice recently, feels like the way to go. And I think Yildiz, certainly because he's so well-rounded, I think, yes, you probably get the most out of him or certainly the most eye-catching moments and the most moments that you go, wow, Yildiz centrally. But I'd say, as we spoke about, I'd say that's true of every player. But also, I think he has the quality to go on the outside, to deliver stuff, to pick passes out, to do that stuff, and be comfortable in a number of different zones off different feet to sort of form these pods. And I think we are missing someone on that left-hand side who can combine with, whether it ends up being Nkapie or Eze or whatever it might be, to form a bit of a players who are comfortable in many, many different zones, who can pull in and out of things and do that. And I see that in Yildiz, also with a force of nature aspect to him that I don't think we quite have in the squad. So in terms of the balance of adding him to this Arsenal side, does make a lot of sense. There's obviously drawbacks to it as well, but I can make a picture for you of why he makes sense.
He's incredibly functional. Like Yildiz will adapt to the player that he's on and execute and still add his personality to it. Whether you ask him to be a little bit more touchline or be a little bit more inside, regardless, this is a guy that's got qualities to thrive in both, so he won't be floundering in any situation, right? And I think that's part of the appeal. Like, he's just so efficient and got such a clear picture of the final third in a team that lacks a bit of that. That's comfy. That's comfort food. That's somebody that's going to take care of it, but also make the right decision and allow other people to thrive as well. The squad aspect, though, is an interesting question, because if you were to ask me, is there overlap with Jesus and Trossard, I would tell you yes. Is there overlap in the amount of wages there? Yes. Can Yildiz fit in a little bit more of replacing that winger who's got a creative mind? Yes. Then there's the bear case in which you're saying, okay, well, you're telling me that we just bought a £60 million Eze. That is that creative winger that likes to come inside, play passes, that is a lot more creative, and it also has his moments and is a maverick, yada, yada. And yes, there is that bear aspect. But again, if you play him with like an Nkapie, Yildiz, and Eze as a pod, I think that would be brilliant. The only thing is, like, who's defending in that pod? Because, you're asking a lot, right? Like, it's very attacking, but it can work, right? And so for me, the biggest question becomes, because I look at the price tag and I love Yildiz. I really like him. I don't love him. And I think I have to love him to be £80 million. I'm uncomfortable at that valuation. But that also is the market for a winger of his age doing what he's doing in a top 5 league for Juventus. Like, I don't think Juventus are wild for demanding that type of fee. I just don't know if I look at Yildiz right now and say, no, you're an £80 million player right now. I think there's a lot of potential baked in that fee. I probably want more of a £65 million fee, £60 million fee with Yildiz. But I also want a lot of things. I would like to be able to afford a house in Toronto. And that's really difficult. So it's a player I really like. I think that it's also a player that won't fail us, which is not something you can say for a lot of talents. And this, by the way, this left winger position has been a problem for Arsenal for years. So to be able to say, I don't think that you will be a problem when you buy him is a huge statement because it's been a problem for years. And he's got a lot of room to grow as well. He's 20. So
yeah,
I don't think it would be a mistake, but I have to be honest. Like, I'm like, no, I'd buy him, but I'm uncomfortable with the fee at 80. And I would have wanted it slightly lower. But I wouldn't be upset. And I think this is a top prospect that essentially would be a very, very good and a safe purchase, actually.
Yeah, I think so. And in many ways, that makes it worth that, maybe that extra 10 or 15 million, because if you just know it's going to bang. I quite like, and that's probably why it's come out, because it makes sense in people's heads. I quite like that Gabby Jesus thing, the sort of, the swap deal. Never really happens, does it? But we are going to have to look at that position. And I think just from a feasibility perspective, I look around and I think who else could buy him? City have still got Grealish to shift, and they've obviously got Doku and Savinho and so on and so forth. And I think they're still probably not quite looking in that market just yet. I don't think I look at Madrid, and I don't know how, I don't know if he goes there. I think he's being really poorly advised. PSG, I can't see that happening without any sales. So I'm looking at a position where probably one of, if not both, Martinelli and Trossard are moving on next summer. Jesus potentially moving on next summer. I think it makes a lot of sense from that perspective. And I do quite strongly want to push this thing of like, I think we could make an argument and go, oh, well, this, is he too similar to Eze, whatever? Maybe he is, but there's the best players, in my opinion, just work it out. And there is an element of chemistry and an element of sort of rhythm and an element of adding that personality to the team. Even in Capia, it's like, is there a lot of overlap probably with other players in the team? Yeah, but when that player becomes available, sometimes you just do it. And I think that for me is probably where I want to leave it. That is more where Arsenal are now under Berta as well, of this player's available, Eze, for example, probably, is that the perfect, absolute, puzzle piece of the century? Even we said probably not, but oh my goodness me, what a, is he exactly what we need at left wing? Probably
it's
not.
Quality.
But it's quality, and you make it work. And I think Yildiz sort of slightly falls into that category for me. And it might be a buy now, think later type thing. And I kind of like that. Because he, to round it off, is that sort of player. He's shoot now, think later. He's work now, think later. He's a force. And I think probably outside of Bukayo Saka, we need that.
Really quickly, would you say he's your top target in that, like, ideal terms right now? Of course, we're probably going to do a lot more scouteds and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, is he like one of like your top three? Because I think for me, he's in my top three of players that I want to look at. Like, he'd be in my short list.
Depends who's available. I mean, Barcola, Semenyo, Leao. Like,
I would literally have that. By the way, I'll put my cards on the table. It's Barcola, Semenyo, Yildiz for me as far as my top three
above Leao.
Yes,
I think I'd push Leao higher, and I don't know who I'd pull out of there. I'd probably have Barcola lower than you, but I'd probably maybe have the same top three. But I think I don't know where he is. I need to keep watching him. But I think for me, the physical attributes always jump off. I mean, it's just my personal. When I watch Semenyo running or I watch Leao running, I'm like, oh, come to my club. I don't know whether that's actually accurate or not, and actually fair, and how Mikel Arteta thinks about things necessarily, or the recruitment team do. I don't know. I need to watch him more. I mean, if Barcola's available, do you know what I mean?
I love me Barcola.
It's gonna be fascinating, and I wouldn't rule out a winter move
for a left winger.
For anyone. Yeah, I really wouldn't. I think under Berta, I know we don't do that, and we're not thinking about that because that's not Arsenal, but that summer wasn't Arsenal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't rule out a sale and a purchase or something. I think that we need to get used to that, and I think Yildiz could certainly, well, who knows? Oh, he wouldn't move in January. Who would? You know what I mean? Might pay a bit more.
I am with you in terms of expecting the un-Arsenal. Is all I'll say. We have a different sporting director, so these ideas, like I would even look at us buying a player to loan back, like a prospect or whatnot. Like I think moves that you would say that doesn't look like Arsenal is not something that you can attribute with Berta. He's very un-Arsenal in intent, and we saw that this summer. So possibilities are open. that's why we want to talk about the transfer window now.
Exactly. Barely into November.
On Halloween.
Well, Halloween for us and November for them. So it's fine. Yeah, we're in October. They're in November, actually. It's fine. It's basically transfer time. Look, thank you all for watching. If you want to go check out the clips, you can do. But also, you get access to every other Scouted episode. So it's a no-brainer at this point. There's so many we've done at this point. I can't even list them. We should actually make a list at some point of all the Scouts we've done.
I think we have a book at this point. Like, there's over 15 players there. So you should have fun.
Yeah, there's loads there. So if you want to go check those out, please do. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you so much for watching. And as always, thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying.